Hello and welcome to another episode of How Are You Holding Up? A mental health podcast by the depressed, for the depressed. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lindsay.
And I think the first question I'd like to ask is, Lindsay, how are you holding up?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm okay right now. I feel hopeful for some projects I'm doing.
Nice.
Have a hike I'm doing tomorrow.
Sweet.
My birthday's coming up.
Hell yeah.
I think next time you guys will hear from me, I will be older. 1 whole year.
I mean, technically every time they hear from us.
No, just this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Just this one time. We're actually immortal vampires.
Specifically older. By numbers.
Yes.
How are you holding up, Chris?
I am. Let's go with. I've had a tumultuous week of emotional highs and lows. The highs have been particularly high, which has been great.
Anything in particular you can share?
A project that I've been working on has been particularly amazing to work on, which Wonderful. I'm very happy about that. I also did 2 things for myself that I had been putting off for quite some time, namely switching phone providers and finally getting myself a decent mattress, which I am excited beyond compare to finally get a mattress that doesn't make me feel like death when I lay in it. So those are 2 things that I did that were very good for myself. And the last thing that has been kind of chasing me, the last, however, has been a need to look into a psychiatrist.
Yes. You have informed me something. You informed me of something today.
Mm-hmm. I need medication.
Yeah.
I have hit a point in my depression where therapy is doing nothing. Talk therapy isn't doing anything. None of the other avenues that I am exploring are helping. And my lows are getting to a point now where it actually does feel somewhat dangerous. And I don't like that. So taking the steps to finding myself somebody who can do some medication management is something that both my therapist and my medical doctor have recommended at this point that I should look into. So I'm doing that. And it sucks.
Yeah, so this episode we're going to be discussing medication, deciding when you need to get it and what it's like when you decide you need to stop. So, Chris, at what point, was there anything specific that you were like, okay, I need meds, like right now? Obviously, you mentioned that you have really bad lows, but was there anything specific that happened?
Oh, yeah, no, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine just recently where I was discussing a lot of kind of really bad things that have been happening in the world around us.
Yes. As
we are inundated with a constant stream of really horrific shit that's going on in the world, and I laughed. I just started laughing. And my friend was kind of just like, you okay? And I'm like, I have no other feelings right now other than I need to laugh at this. Mm-hmm. That there is nothing. I cannot be sad. I cannot be down. I cannot be upset anymore because I have used all of it up. I feel so utterly and unbelievably, incomprehensibly just fed up with everything going on. And there's no escape from this world and its ever-present tragedy.
Something you said earlier for me was a good indicator was when you said you were doing all these things that were positive, especially for you, specifically for you, and like doing things you needed to get done that were going to increase the quality of life, and you just didn't feel anything.
Yeah, no. I felt some amounts of pride and like switching phone providers and making my budget and doing a whole bunch of like financially sound decisions and physically sound decisions for myself that I have been putting off. And then finally, once I did them, I was hoping to feel some form of elation or pride or at the very least relief. And I felt nothing. I feel nothing for most things. And this is something that in the past I'd never experienced before.
So if you're new to our podcast, for us, what we've discussed this before is depression is not necessarily being extremely, extremely, extremely sad. It is having a lack of really feeling anything. You don't get to feel really high about anything. And if you are proud of yourself, it's just for like a brief moment. You feel kind of good, and then it's gone. And because you don't have enough of those positive chemicals in your body, even thinking of memories that were happy for you at the time do not create any happy feelings in you. So you feel as though you've never experienced happiness. There's a total hopelessness, a total lack of giving a shit. And it's a really scary place to be, a very frustrating place to be, and some often fraught with guilt, because these big, lovely moments of your life, you just can't experience to the full emotional place that you should be.
Yeah.
And then the lows are real low.
Yeah. And I mean, for my part, at least, when I experience my highs, it's usually, at least in my experience, part of the mask that I put on when I'm around people.
So when you say that you're in front of people, you look like you're experiencing a high, but that's not your actual high.
No.
You're not feeling it, right?
Well, not necessarily, though. Sometimes I am experiencing the high, and I'm actually feeling good, and I feel great, and I feel like myself again, and then reality sinks in immediately as soon as it's done. Like, I could be having the best conversation. I could be having lunch with friends, and then as soon as it's over, it is immediate. The withdrawal into self and the completeness of oblivion.
I think that's why it's so frustrating and so confusing when you see somebody who seems to be super, super happy and fun and seem to be enjoying life, and maybe you had a great lunch with them or you went out and did something fun, and then something awful happens where they decide to end their life, and you're like, why would this person do that? They seemed to be doing okay. They had things going for them. There was hope in their life, and it's just, it just goes, but there's just nothing there. When you're depressed, it's just, there's nothing.
It's one of the things also that, I don't know, I honestly feel a lot of the times, and this is one of the things that really kind of pushed me towards seeking medication, possibly, is that everything that I do feels purposeless, pointless. There's no reason for me to do anything. There's no greater calling, or there's nothing in particular that I'm sitting there going, yeah, no, I want to be around for that. I don't want to be around for anything. I don't want to be around for eating food. I don't want to be around for going to work. I don't want to be around for waking up in the morning sometimes. I just don't want to exist. And that's really the hardest part to explain to people is I don't want to die. I just want to not exist. And that kind of sensation goes beyond explanation sometimes, because people don't really think about non-existence. They think of, living or dead. Those are the extremes of thought. Non-existence to me is something further than that. Like, with death, there's a potential for a transfer of consciousness, or a transfer of energy, or perhaps nothing at all. But the true seeking of oblivion is so... It's almost unable to be conceived in the human mind.
So I think, and we're not professionals, we're not therapists, but I think there's a certain point in your life when you have to make the decision, regardless of how stubborn you are, regardless of how much you don't want to, when you need to get on medication.
Yes.
I think a few things are pretty obvious. It's when you really are not enjoying anything in your life and it's been a while. When you become a danger to yourself and others, and that looks like kind of like what Chris is describing. It's not a dramatic thing, and it can happen over time.
Yeah.
It is not. So if you are right now in someone's life and you're expecting to be like, well, should this person be on medication? And you're looking for some giant sign, neon sign saying absolutely yes. It usually doesn't happen.
No.
It's usually very private, and it might have even been years of this person going in a downward spiral. And so that's hard to like really notice. So fortunately, we have this podcast where we can see both Chris and my emotional status and see when we're up and when we're low. And I think more than not, this last year you've been down.
Oh, yeah. No, this year has been particularly difficult for a number of reasons, and none of which I'm able to really truly find cause for. But that said, the thing that's particularly worrying for me as well, as somebody who is seeking to, I should point out, return to medication. I had been on medication once before. I had been specifically on Lexapro. And Lexapro, for me, it did elevate my mood, at least I thought it did, for a few months. After which I completely flatlined emotionally. That was something that I hadn't expected. And so I proceeded to, against doctor's orders, go cold turkey and just stop taking it. Now, this time is going to be... let me go back. That time was under the care of a medical doctor. This time I am looking specifically for a medical doctor with an expertise in psychiatry. There are medical doctors who can prescribe antidepressants and whatnot, but they may not have the specialty that you're looking for.
Right.
And the training and the knowledge of what the steps are to take or how to manage the dosage and whatnot. So it does honestly behoove you to find somebody who is a specialist.
I think the fear... I've also been on medication. I sought out to be medicated when I was getting to a point where I was contemplating suicide pretty regularly. And I was no longer enjoying life, and it had been a long time that way. And I just felt like I wasn't able to do much of anything. If you guys have been a listener for a while now, you know that I struggled with leaving the house. I struggled with doing normal things that, quote unquote normal, like showering every day, going to the gas station, doing adult things. I just really struggled with it. So I decided medication was the way to go. And
did you see a psychiatrist?
I did. I saw a psychiatrist. I was young and I didn't know what that should look like. The psychiatrist I walked in. I've had multiple psychiatrists. This one in particular did sit and talk with me and did get to kind of know me and medicated me. He was not great. Looking back on it now, the questions were kind of off. And the second time I had a psychiatrist, I walked in and said, "Hey, I'm depressed. These are my symptoms." He said, "Okay, here's your medication. Go."
Yeah.
So a lot of the time, I was too young to know that's just not the way it's supposed to go. And I didn't know how to push for like more communicate. I don't know how to describe it. But when you're young, you just expect that, well, that adult who has this degree knows what they're doing. Both times... I want to say I've been on medication 2 or 3 times, and they always end up flatlining me as well. And for me, it's very hard to become a guinea pig because basically nobody can be like, okay, this is going to be your fix-all.
Yeah.
There's the dosage. You don't know how high or low your dose should be and what medication to be on and if there should be something that goes in tandem with it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a time where you are kind of a guinea pig.
Yes, and for that time that you were a guinea pig, you also don't know. It takes time. They're not going to affect you overnight. They're not going to affect you in a week. They're going to affect you a month later after you've already been taking it for so long.
You've also got about a year you need to be on it.
Yeah.
Because the first couple years you do get a high. And then you get about, I think it's about, you hit 6-month mark is when supposedly you should be leveling out. And kind of knowing what you're going through. There's all kinds of charts and stuff online to be able to show how long you have to try it. So this is really an undertaking, and it'll be great that we can possibly do this on the podcast while you're going through it. But yeah, it's very intimidating, but it is worth it.
Yes, I would say that ultimately there is a benefit to taking something that even if the action of doing something like that, because that is part of it, is there is a reward kind of feeling when you take this medication, and once you've taken it, you're sitting there and you're able to tell yourself, I've done something that's good for me, that's going to help me manage these dark thoughts that are in my head, or they're going to help elevate my mood, or they're going to do something else, they're going to wane my anxiety. Whatever the case may be, you are going to have a little bit of a trigger of a reward, which is phenomenal in and of itself.
I pulled up a thing from Google.
Yes.
So the acute phase, which is when a person first begins antidepressants, is about 4 to 12 weeks after. Then you go into a continuation phase, which is preventing a relapse or return to the depressive episode. And that can last anywhere from 4 months to a year. However, for people who meet the following criteria, maintenance phase lasting a year or longer is needed either at a regular dose or a smaller dose. So basically, it's talking about like how to monitor yourself and how much you're going to need the medication or not, and to really know that the first few weeks are not going to be like the following months.
No.
The first couple weeks, you won't notice too much of a difference.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I noticed about 4 weeks in, and I've never been happier.
Yeah, I think
felt amazing.
That first few months, like, I felt really good.
And it was incredible because for me, it was like, I didn't know you could be this happy for this long. Because for me, just not being on antidepressants, I have a hard time being happy for a long period of time. And it was amazing. It was so lovely. And I had no anxiety. I actually would walk to places, which I still can't really do now. I'd go out and I'd be smiling, and I was pretty high, I think, on these fabulous antidepressants, which honestly, looking back on, I'm glad that I did it.
Sure.
Even though it wasn't something I decided to stick with.
Even if it was just a momentary, like, lapse in the darkness, there's still something to be said about that.
And then I decided for me, what the big reason to stop being on antidepressants was because I had, first of all, shuffled around to different meds, and then I came to a place where I was in a very abusive situation, very dangerous, and I was so medicated that I didn't notice or care or really feel the adequate feelings that I should be. I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel depressed or sad or all those things that are indicating there's something wrong, there's something off, you need to get out of the situation. And I just kind of would let things go until I was like literally living in a garage. So you have to be careful because it can take away the dips that you have to have that are necessary. I also wasn't able to be creative. I was trying to go to college and I couldn't come up with anything creative, and I'm that's really one of the only gifts I have, is being able to come up with stories on the fly and music and improv, and I couldn't do any of that. It was like I'd become all logical, like this completely different person had taken over me.
And that in and of itself is also something that you just need to be aware of. You need to one of the most important things that you can do if you go on medication is being able to keep track of how you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And when you start to notice that shift of oh, I don't want to be this person. It's the same as the shift when you are without medication and you look to get into it, is I don't want to be this person.
Yes.
So ultimately it does come down to a self-awareness.
Yeah, so 2 things to remember here is getting on medication, you are going to have some brain changes and chemistry changes and thought pattern changes. Coming off, stopping medication comes with its own huge slew of problems. There's cold turkey, which is extremely dangerous, and there's weaning off, which you usually do with help of a doctor or therapist.
Yes, the doctor, ideally a doctor and therapist. Yeah. Because you would be going to the therapist for talk sessions, who would be able to see how you are responding to the medication. You are able to do evaluations with them, and they are able to see, okay, here's how you answered 6 months ago. Here's how you answered now.
How we're getting on.
I'm seeing either an improvement or I'm seeing a degradation.
Right.
It's really, you sometimes need that outside perspective at the very least.
While you're weaning off.
Yeah.
I was an idiot, and I decided I can wean myself off without anybody's help, and it was extremely dangerous, and I did not do it properly or in proper doses, and I got what is commonly referred to as brain zaps. Those are weird. I got rage bouts. I became like another person. I had extremely nauseous, extreme anxiety. Basically, it was in hell for, I don't know,
however
week,
long,
2 weeks.
Yeah, however long it took you to
have the withdrawal.
Yeah.
And the so yeah, so brain zaps they refer to a withdrawal symptom that's common for individuals who cease taking medication and for depression and anxiety. And it's a literal physical feeling. It feels like there's a lightning bolt that goes through your brain, almost like you were having a stroke or something. I don't know how to describe it. It's bizarre. It completely would just take me out of what was happening.
It probably is your brain just misfiring electrons and just like going crazy on, hey, where's my dopamine?
Yes.
And all that. So it's terrifying.
So do it with a professional if you are deciding at this point to come off of your medication, or if you're trying a new medication.
Yes.
Obviously. And I think it has to, whether you decide to go on medication or come off medication, make sure that you have a support system in place already, not just a doctor and a therapist. Make sure you're not like totally alone going through all of this, because you're going to need help and support and people to kind of be like, hey man, how you doing? You're acting kind of weird. You've been acting kind of weird for a while.
I've been noticing lately, and this has been kind of heartwarming at the very least, is a more ready openness in people to discuss their medications that they're on.
Yes.
How they're affected by them. All of that. I'm noticing it and I'm seeing it, and it's absolutely, it for somebody who can't really feel a whole bunch, it actually fills my heart to see that, hey, there's people who are actively able to communicate what they're going through, how it's affecting them.
Yeah.
It's everything that we strive for.
I do feel like the stigma in general with depression, anxiety, and meds is really low. We're just seeing our generation.
We're seeing
it's miserable.
Yeah, we're seeing a generation that is going through so much misery, so much hardship, and we have to sit there and just go, yeah, man, me too.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Oh God, it's horrible. But we aren't going to talk about like specific medications too much, because I think we have limited real availability between like SSRIs and blah blah blah.
If we're gonna ever do that, I think we should have
we'll have a medical professional on.
Yeah, and honestly, it's different per person.
Yeah,
it's really not something that I can recommend or not recommend to somebody.
But there is another alternative that I feel is kind of a green elephant in the room at this point. The legalization of marijuana.
Now, obviously not everywhere is it as acceptable as California.
No, we are one of the few states at this point, and also not to mention countries in the world that has started legalizing marijuana, not only for recreational use, but also for medicinal use.
So before we get too far into this, we want to say that this is just based off of our own personal experiences. It's going to be different for everyone, and wherever you stand politically, or, it's, hey man, live and let live.
Yeah.
I personally have smoked marijuana. I believe you have as well, Chris?
I have smoked, I have done edibles,
Yeah.
vaped. The matter of ingestion isn't so much important at this point.
Yeah.
But what I can say from my experiences have been, they have, depending on circumstances, been good and bad experiences.
Yes.
In terms of dealing with my depression and the moments that I have anxiety and things like that. There's been both good and bad. So it's but at that same token, there are many people I know, and from their experiences, they'd hardly be able to function without it. I'm not saying it's like a bad thing. I'm saying that it has helped them so much that it should be more readily available at that point.
I do think that as we all have seen, the world of marijuana has changed immensely.
Yes.
The medicinal purposes, the studies, and
not even just talking THC versus CBD.
No, I mean, there's just so much, and so really, depending on what you are dealing with, how you are as a person, you can go in, talk to a professional about what you usually experience and what you need, and they can give you a specific strain or give you some options. But maybe you just want to do something that's topical, like a cream or whatever. Yeah. It just depends on where you're coming from. I also want to say, in the vein of a lot of people that I've spoken to, personally, I do think that marijuana can be addictive. And I do think that it can, a lot of people who have depression, anxiety, experience more anxiety and more depression with prolonged use. It depends on just like your chemistry.
Your physiology. I
really don't know if it's a way to be able to tell how it's going to, and then in different parts of your life too. When I was younger, I could smoke a little bit, not have as much anxiety. Now I don't smoke. I don't partake. Way too much anxiety. It takes away all my motivation, what little I have of it. Time will just fly by and I don't even notice.
Sure.
And so for me, it's not a very good option. And I know that about myself. I would never tell somebody else not to.
No, absolutely.
So,
but that is one thing that, as an alternative to an antidepressant medication, that is an option for some people, as well as, meditation or exercise or any of the other alternatives.
Look, you can Google it, and there's all kinds of stuff for
At one point, one of the articles we had read on this subject just simply said, "Wait it out."
Yeah, wait out your depression. And sometimes maybe that will help with some. It's seasonal. Oh, that was something I wanted to mention earlier. Sorry. Is if you are coming off medication, besides doing it with a professional, do it in a happy season. Spring is great. If you live in a place where it's dark all the time, try to think about all of your different factors. And back with the marijuana thing, I think I wanted to mention that I used it a lot when I was coming off of antidepressants, and that did help me.
Yes.
It helped me enormously.
So there is definitely a time, a place,
yeah,
a sensation.
Yeah. But always use in safe places with people that you trust. Yes. Or alone in a comfy bed.
Yes. Going back to marijuana for a moment, I will say from one of our guests that we had on, New, she is a major proponent for it. It has helped her with her chronic pain, with her own anxiety and depression and whatnot. In my experiences, I would say it hasn't made me anxious, thankfully. It has, if anything, allowed me to be capable of having that kind of social lubricant that I used to be in excess of. It was able to just kind of relax me and give me the strength of mind to more or less hit the fuck it button and just go, yeah, No, I'm here to have a good time. I'm not here to dredge up negative shit and really suffer my own thoughts and feelings. I'm here to enjoy. Mm-hmm. It is one of the benefits of it that I feel, if anything, we can absolutely vouch for to a degree.
Yeah, so we just want to talk about the other possibilities if you're thinking about medication.
Yes. But on that note, we will see how my hunt for a psychiatrist goes over the coming weeks. Hopefully things end up well. I have some doubts, I have some fears, and I have some concerns, which we will be addressing as time goes on. Hopefully sooner than later.
For me, I'm going to try and continue taking the B12 shots. We did that one experiment where we did the B12, and I noticed a huge improvement in my mood and energy levels. So I'm going to try that, and I'm going to try and do some exercise regularly, and that way we can kind of both see how we're doing. I'm a little bit stubborn with meds, and I'm scared of doing them again. So I applaud you for coming to a place where you are trying to do the best for yourself, regardless of how you necessarily feel about them.
One way or the other, I will at least attempt and then see if it helps or if it hurts.
Yeah.
Either way, I don't feel like I could get much worse than I feel right now.
Yeah.
So, hooray!
So, you guys, I hope that this was helpful. And thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate all of you. It's been such a wonderful journey, and we love this community.
Yes, you guys have been nothing but supportive and amazing, and we thank you all from the bottom of our hearts. As for us, follow us on Instagram at HAYHU Podcast. Like the Facebook page, subscribe to the subreddit. If you'd like to support us, we have a Patreon, which we're going to be posting bonus episodes and various other bits and pieces onto as soon as we can really get that going. Or you can also send us an email at mailbag@howareyoholdingup.com. We love hearing from you guys all the time. It just blows our mind.
Yes, and any kind of input is always helpful. If you want to hear a specific episode, if you have thoughts on something we've already done, we love it. So thank you for reaching out. And as always,
don't tell us to just get over it.